Okay, how's everybody doing today? All right. We're in week 11. Can y'all believe that? It's crazy. Anyone see the Bears game? That was wild. Kind of a wild week for professional football. Green Bay lost. Lions lost. Bills won. Mhm. All right. Anyone want to chat about that for a few minutes? Okay. What's our topic, y'all? Not all at once. Free will. Okay. Do we have an in-class assignment for this? Yes. How far have we gotten into it so far? Not all that far. Does everybody have the handouts up front? All four. The questions again if anybody needs them. So today, by the end of class today, we should be finished with question number one. Let's shoot for that. I think we can do it. I think we can get through question number one. It's going to take attendance. And then we'll do a little review. I think that's often helpful. We'll do a little review and then get back into it. Okay. And one thing we might want to do by the end of this unit is talk a little bit about what role free will plays in our actual lives. It's something that philosophers often don't get to. For this unit, there are a couple of readings on Blackboard. Maybe some of you did them. Read a little bit from Sider, read a little bit from Ney. Here, there's a few things up front, a few handouts. One thing I think you'll see if you read these articles, if you read a lot that philosophers write about free will, often they don't say much about how this impacts our actual lives. I mean, we might talk about it very generally at the beginning, which we've already done. And actually, just as a reminder, let's get into that. What have we done with free will so far? What questions did we ask about it? Thursday. Anyone recall? What questions did we ask about free will on Thursday? Nicole? You're Nicole, right? That's Claudia. Yeah. Nicole, you recall any of the questions about free will we asked on Thursday? You might just say, okay, what questions did the professor probably have us cover the first day, right? So we did actually chat a little bit about that. Like, what importance does it have, right? Other questions? I said, what is it? What do we even mean by it? And really quickly with that, we can ask a few related questions. We can say, are we all using the word free will in the exact same way? What do you think? No, that pretty much never happens. Are we all trying to get at one concept of free will, or could there be different concepts of free will? I think actually there are different ones. And I think that's actually going to be really important for us. And I think free will can come in degrees. I'll actually chat about that in just a minute. I think it's actually hugely important for us that there might be different concepts of free will and that free will can come in degrees. So what is it? Does anyone recall? What did we say? Let's do a little review. And you will need this to answer question number one on the in-class assignment. What did we say about what free will is? Did I attempt to offer a definitive final definition? No. Honestly, I've been thinking about free will for a number of years. I'm still not sure how I would define it. That's okay. There are biologists who say we don't know how to define species. There's debates about that. We don't have to have a like totally precise definition for everything. We just do our best. And different philosophers will debate this. You may reach the end of this unit without being sure exactly what it is. Again, it's really hard for scientists actually to define species. There's no agreement on that. And by the way, we're supposed to do a day on it, so I'm just going to say really quickly. You can't just say it's obvious that what makes things a species is that they can successfully interbreed with one another. That runs into problems. So we might start with that idea that what makes all these things dogs is that they can interbreed with one another. That actually runs into problems. They share a common, evolutionary past. That runs into problems. They have the same genetics. That runs into problems. Anytime a biologist throws out a definition for species, other biologists are like, yeah, actually, there's problems with that. That doesn't necessarily mean dogs don't exist, or we don't know when we see them. Do you know what I'm saying? If we don't come up with like a super amazing definition for freedom, I think we're okay, but we want to be able to say something about it. So what did we say about it? Just to get started. Does anyone recall? Anyone have notes? What did we say about it on Thursday? Yeah, Sarah? Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. We could call this agency. We could call this free will. We can use these terms basically interchangeably, at least for now. The agency or free will is directing one's body and or thoughts as a result of one's choices, which I think Owen gave us the word choice. You could say decisions. I think I might have said through one's choices. It's the same. Okay. So a lot of philosophers are going to say we need to fix this up a bit. This as it stands can't be quite right. It's a good place for us to start. So that's what we're talking about. And again, what kind of things do we say have free will? Keys. Do these keys have free will? Why not? Can't think so. They can't make decisions, can't make choices. So these keys don't have it. What kind of things do we say have it? What are those? What are these things? These very special things. Human beings. Some of us are going to want to say also dogs. Maybe not to the same extent as us. Again, free will might come in degrees. Maybe a lot of us are probably going to want to say dogs, cats, squirrels, maybe not earthworms, not plants. Probably very few of us would want to say plants because most of us are going to think plants don't make decisions, right? If we believe in angels and demons, we might say those things too, unless we think they're completely controlled by God or Satan or whatever. And then you could get into some debates about that, whether that kind of control is compatible with free will. If you believe in a God, you probably think that God has free will. Largely, we're focused on this. Why do we care about it? So we said a little bit about what it is, at least as a start. We've said a little bit about what has it. Well, we kind of worked that out on the basis of this. Do we think we make choices? Yeah. Do we think that we're moving our bodies with these choices? Yeah. Why are you all here today? Because you chose to be. So far, so good. Why do we care about this? Again, we're going to have 3 weeks on free will in this class. Why? There's a lot of things we could talk about. We could talk about philosophy and math. Why do you think I chose to talk about free will for so long? Why do we care about it? Do we care about it? Yeah, Carter? I feel like it's better how anything connected maybe with values, morals, purpose for us. There seem to be some links here between free will and morality/purpose. Well, let's focus on morality. Do we sometimes praise people for doing well? Yeah. Actually, not always morally. We might praise somebody for being a really good like ice skater. That's not necessarily a moral achievement. But we sometimes praise people for what they do morally. When do we praise people morally? When do we like say somebody's a really good person? What kind of things does that person have to do? Or how do they have to be? Yeah, Chris? Say a little more. What would be an example? What would be like an example of nobility of character? Good, maybe especially if they're not expecting anything in return, especially if there's maybe some cost to it, especially if they're just motivated by a desire to help a fellow human being. We'll like praise that morally. What are some things that we tend to criticize people for morally? What are like bad actions? Nicole? Murdering someone like me. Ed, what was his name again? Okay. Yeah. And then we might actually start wondering a bit though. Should we blame that guy? Why might some people start wondering? Look, I haven't seen the program, right? I did see Texas Chainsaw Massacre. when I was young. It actually kind of scared the bejesus out of me. I don't scare that easily, but that freaked me out, right? I don't know anything about the actual guy, right? But some of you may, what's the name of the show again? It's called Ed Gein. Are you guys aware of this? Was that Netflix? Okay. Are you guys aware of this show? It's like kind of a thing right now, right? So I don't know much about this dude, but so he murdered a bunch of people and like turned them into lamps and stuff like this. Okay, but he did do some of his own murdering. Okay, interesting. Okay, I know it's a little gruesome. Some of us might actually wonder if we should describe him as bad. Not because they're nihilists. Why? Why might we start wondering whether we should really call this guy bad? I'm not saying we should, and I don't even know anything about him, but I'm just trying to illustrate that sometimes when we get, if we're like, you murdered somebody for money, you're really bad. You murdered somebody because you wanted to make shoes out of them? Shit, I don't know what to say about that anymore. Like, I want to say bad, but also, why might we hesitate a little bit with that? Chris? Okay, no. Okay, yeah, we might do that. I think we better be able to say murder's bad or we're in trouble. You know what I mean? Yeah, John? Yeah, we might wonder, like, is their brain even like working properly? And if their brain isn't working properly, are they making meaningful choices? I'm not trying to say, I'm not trying to pronounce anything about how we should run the criminal justice system at all. But I'm just saying, we do recognize sometimes, right? That if somebody's not quite in their right mind, I mean, we have this legal insanity. All my knowledge of this comes from old episodes of Law and Order and a handful of episodes of the NCIS where this popped up, right? So I don't know. But we do, I think, recognize that sometimes people might not be quite in their right minds. And then we actually start wondering, well, are they as guilty as someone would be in their right mind? Which also then raises interesting questions. So you're telling me you could be in your right mind while murdering somebody for money? Well, yes and no. It gets kind of complicated. But what happens in this case is we start wondering whether they're really free or free enough, right? Again, if a rock rolls on your foot and destroys your shoe, you can get mad at it. You can curse it. You can kick it. But you also realize that's kind of irrational, and you're not going to call the cops on the rock. But if another human being on your shoe on purpose, well, then you might call the cops. What's the difference? The rock doesn't have free will. Why? Because the rock can't think, so it can't make choices, right? We do connect again morality, purpose with free will. Does everyone see that? That's what I say. And even again, even with another human being, we might say sometimes I'm not sure if I should hold them fully responsible because I don't know if they were in their right mind, if they had the same kind of control over themselves to make choices in a relevant way. Right. I know this case might be kind of grim too, but what do you think if somebody like holds you up in an ATM? You know, I don't know, you're downtown Wheaton, you're gonna take out like 20 bucks so you can get a coffee from Starbucks. Probably costs about that much right now for a cappuccino. And you know, someone like puts a gun to you know, to your back and says, "Give me your money or I'll kill you." Are you free? I think I just want to say maybe yeah. Are you fully free? Anyone here? Okay, so you like fully free? You could choose to just say, "Shoot, let's see, go for it." You could. Does anybody here have a sense that maybe it's we're getting some disagreements? That's all right. Does anybody have a sense here that maybe you wouldn't be fully free? Aristotle actually, somehow, yeah. Aristotle actually thought about these cases over 2,000 years ago, and he said in these cases, you are free, but there does seem to be something funny about your freedom. It is really constrained. You're almost pushed to the breaking point. You're almost pushed to the limits of human psychology. And we can't have a lot of sympathy with people for doing things in those states that we wouldn't have sympathy for them if they did it normal. I don't know if you guys ever watched the show 24. but it's like everybody in that show ends up kidnapping and torturing people because somebody else like kidnapped their kid and threatened them or something. And you just kind of, well, somebody kidnapped their kid, So I kind of, then you start to wonder, I don't know, should he really be doing this? No, it gets complicated sometimes, right? All right. Are we can anybody else see why we might care about free will? We see it as having connection with morality. We can say more about this. Anything else about free will we could see? Why am I matter? If not right yet, it's okay. We'll get into this more. We're gonna have a group activity and some stuff will come out of it. Yeah.
People, everybody actually, they want agency over their lives. If you don't free will without agency, then it kind of ruins the purpose of it in a sense for most people.
Saturn's gonna touch on this. Leading your own life, on leading a meaningful life. It's your own life or a meaningful life. We think in some way the meaning of our lives is diminished if we don't have control over ourselves. And we don't like it when people restrict our freedom. There's something I want to chat about for a hot minute before we go on. Look, I know this might be a little bit dicey to talk about in class. You don't have to be too personal about yourself. What kind of things do you think actually take away our freedom in life? The philosophers actually, we don't discuss a lot. So we talk about some things, but there's so much we don't discuss. There's kind of two things I want to highlight to you all. What are some things you think can take away freedom from people? Sarah? Like from your parents or society? Can be a lot of pressure on us, right? A lot of people don't feel fully free. I bet some of you don't feel all that free in attending college. Some of you probably would say to yourselves, I prefer not to have to do this, but you kind of feel like you have to have life satisfaction. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised. Anybody want to touch on that, you Christian? Okay, yeah, just hold on to that. Anybody want to touch on the expectations of others? Just one thing to add on this really quickly. It is kind of complicated because we might think any form of social pressure is negative, but I do wonder about that. We are social beings, and even the way we learn how to like talk, the way we learn English or Korean or whatever it is, right? Kind of has to come from understanding other people have expectations for us to talk in certain ways, right? Like we kind of need that to actually like have a human society, but a lot of times it really can feel pretty damn heavy-handed and even constraining. Anybody got anything else? Christian, yeah? Okay, good. Physical limitations. And now we can ask a really good question again. Does free will mean being able to do absolutely anything you can think of? I've heard some people say we don't have free will. And I'm like, that's really interesting. Why do you say that? They say, well, I can't just levitate right now through sheer will. And I always wonder, does that mean we don't have free will? Do we have to be able to do absolutely anything we can think of in order to be free? I think that's probably maybe too strong of a requirement. There's no reason to place that kind of condition on free will. We don't have to be able to do absolutely. It might turn out paradoxically, we can only really have meaningful freedom if we are kind of constrained in some way. We might have talked about this before. Human beings have very, very strong desires. Human beings have very, very strong desires to eat and drink water, right? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's a good thing. But we don't want everything dictated like that. We don't want everything to be like that. We want to have a lot of room where we get a lot of control, right? And limitations on our body at a certain point, they can start looking like we're losing freedom. I mean, if you put somebody in jail, if you put somebody in solitary confinement, if you just strap them down to a table, I mean, they could still think what they want to think, but that seems like a pretty serious limitation on their freedom. Yeah. Carter?
Yeah, I would say like in order to have free will, we should have to have like some sort of like contradiction against it.
some kind of structure, something. I think you actually do. I think it's okay. I don't think it's gonna be like a true, like vicious, like logical contradiction at the end of the day. But I think it does require some kind of structure. It does require some kind of limits. Like for one thing, you just open your eyes and you see stuff. I can't tell my brain, don't see the table. And actually, thank goodness. If I had to like, first of all, how could that even work? I'd have to be able to see the table and then decide if I want to see it or not. I mean, you can't, you know what I mean? Like some stuff just has to like come in, through your senses. You know what I mean? In order to be able to navigate your environment in any meaningful way whatsoever. Right? And actually, I think it's probably a good thing that our bodies kind of force us to go to sleep after a while. Otherwise, what would we all do with ourselves? We never sleep. We would just be on video games or whatever all night and then we die. You know what I'm saying? Like it's probably good our body, if some of us, if our body, a lot of us, I think, if our body didn't say eat, we'd forget and we die. Maybe it's a really good thing. Like we can't even have meaningful lives unless our bodies kind of make us do a lot of stuff. Or at least very strongly incline us to do a lot of stuff. But still we think we're free because we got a lot of room to maneuver within that, right? Yeah. Anything else on this? What are some things that might take away our freedom in life? Give me some more stuff. Chris? The law? Okay, yeah. Now again, we could always choose to break the law or not, but you might think the law can restrict your freedom. And I mean, there are countries where that seems to happen. I mean, I don't think a lot of us would want to relocate to North Korea, right? I mean, I'd be dead. You know what I mean? Within a day. I wouldn't like that. They'd be like, you're not allowed to believe these things or talk about these things or anything, or else you're in jail and dead. I'm like, that's not good. At least at a certain point, the law does seem to be able to put some real restraints on you. Yeah, we like freedom of speech. We like this kind of stuff. A lot of places don't quite have that, Yeah, Carter?
Religion.
Religion can put limits on us. Yeah. Some of us might want to say it could give us freedom. Some of us might want to say it could also take it away. Yeah.
I'd say people who have like access to a certain thing who become slaves to their own vices and their own like free will.
Yeah, I kind of do want to talk about that. So one thing, maybe we'll hit this up at the end of our unit. But again, we talked about, I'm stringing all this stuff together. We talked about happiness. Then we did ethics. There's connections between us. We saw we might want to be virtuous in order to develop life satisfaction. I think there's connections here with free will. Vice might actually take away our freedom. I mean, a really clear example of that is addiction. Right? It's easy for us to talk about being enslaved to whatever we're addicted to, isn't it? Slavery is not freedom. So this is where I push you guys a little bit. Do you know where I see a major source of loss of freedom in our society? The damn phones. I mean, when people like get antsy if they don't have the phone in their hand, I think we're talking about addiction. I think it's a kind of an enslavement. It's taking away our freedom. And I don't know how much you guys, look, if you're not 21, you should not have spent time in a casino. But maybe in some states, Ho-Chunk, maybe you could be 18. I don't know. When I was younger, I used to spend a fair amount of time at casinos playing poker. And eventually, sometimes I'd hit the craps table or do a little blackjack. But anyhow, I don't know if you all are aware of this, but casinos go through a lot of effort to manipulate you into staying there and spending money. Number one, there are no clocks on the walls. The colors yeah, Carter?
Don't they pump like oxygen in there?
I think so. They do all kinds of stuff to kind of keep you engaged. And actually, I know somebody now who actually designs slot machines. And you probably know this. They rely on all kinds of psychology to get you to play the slot machines. Actually, one thing that this person told me I thought was really interesting. He said a lot of slot machines, you just push a button. Do you guys know what slot machines are? Okay, maybe I shouldn't be talking about this. I don't want to prime you for anything. But a lot of slot machines, you push a button and it makes like the cherries or whatever spin, and then you see whether you like hit or not and get paid. And there's been some research on this, and it's been discovered that even when the odds of winning are the exact same, people vastly prefer to pull a lever on the machine. They don't want to push a button, they want to pull a lever. They feel like they have more control, they have more agency. The odds are the exact same, but people feel they have more control. You make more money off them. That and the people who do, there's so much money in casinos, and they know exactly like how to maximize the extraction for. And again, they will give you back a lot of your money. If no one got a dollar from a casino, no one would ever go. They know exactly kind of what the sweet spot is for how much money they have to give you back in order to keep you there longer. Right. And even if they don't give you back 99 cents on the dollar, but even if they did, they still get a penny off you. I mean, that's still a profit. You go by volume, you still make cash off of that, right? The people who design all these phones and design stuff on the phones, they're doing the exact same thing to us. When we hear about casinos doing it, we get really upset. When we hear about Facebook doing it to us, we're like, ah, that's cool. These people are actually trying to enslave us for profit. They don't really care about us. I mean, it's kind of grim, and it works. It's actually a very successful, you know? I mean, if I had to wish on my best friend a cocaine addiction or a phone addiction, I might say let's give the coke a try. Let's see how that pans out. Phones seem really bad. I mean, I know some people, who've done some drugs and still got their shit done for school. I don't know. So, sorry. Marco, or did you have your hand raised for that or somebody? Eric?
Just recall. Damn, I forgot. Could say. Oh yeah, I think like, just because a lot of people have access to like, I guess like food's a good example, I find myself binge eating a lot. A lot of my family's fat as hell and we love to eat.
This is going on YouTube, Eric. I forgot. Go ahead.
A lot of people, we have the freedom to eat now. And, I used to do wrestling in high school, so I think I might have developed a eating disorder through that low key. Like, used to starve myself, make weight, da, da, da. But, like, I try to be disciplined. I try not to eat a lot of food. I love to eat. I'll crash out. I'll binge eat food. My family does the same thing. And it's kind of just like, we're kind of, and to the point where it's damaging to us. So it's like we're kind of slaves to having the free will to eat now. But like before, money, you can't food. If you're, a caveman, you can't eat all the time. So I think that's kind of like a whatever. I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Well, I wonder about this thing. And again, I'm not a sociologist, and being a philosopher doesn't mean you have deep thoughts on everything. We always got to ask ourselves, is there an expert here? Have I studied that? So I'm not trying to like say anything is true. It's just something I wonder about. I noticed that like whenever I go to Italy, actually I always lose weight. I just do. And I mean I love the pizza and the pasta over there. And I've wondered about like why do I lose weight every time I go to Italy? And I'm like, oh yeah, because you walk all the time there. And sometimes people even wonder, how are Italians like so slim or whatever? You're eating all this pizza and pasta. First of all, the portion sizes are often very different. They're also eating a lot of fruit and vegetables for a lot of people, but it just the society set up to walk a lot more. People don't drive everywhere. They walk a lot in their towns, and they have these piazza, the square, where people like walk there and walk around. And you start to actually think about the ways in which we don't even realize the social factors that kind of drive a lot of our behaviors. Like the number of hours we work, how we set up our towns, how we set up our cities, you know what I mean? Like what food's even available, like all this stuff. And I'm not trying to say we have no free will, we have no agency, but I mean also we can't stand completely outside of I mean, how much freedom is freedom, right? How much do we really have? It's interesting to think about. And let's wonder if we just set up our towns differently, whether we'd have a lot better outcomes for a lot of people. Do you know what I'm saying? We don't think about that kind of stuff here. Like so many things that drive so much of our lives, we don't even acknowledge them. I think that's one reason why traveling actually can be really helpful because you're like, I think that's why engaging with different religions and all this, it kind of shows you like what you were doing all along. You didn't even notice, you know? Yeah, Carter, did you want to add something about that?
Yeah, I think it's true, but it's just kind of definitely a restriction of the U.S. as a society. Easy access.
Yeah, it's tough. And some of it is climate too. The last time I was in Italy, I was talking with this couple from Switzerland. And we were chatting about this very thing. And they're like, well, where we live in Switzerland, it's, we're in the middle, it's cold a lot of it. We can't do this there. So there's those kind of factors too. Sometimes there's just luck of the draw. Yeah, but we don't have like a culture of walking. A lot of places you don't have sidewalks. If you walk, you could get harassed by the police sometimes. I got a buddy actually, he's got a condo over here in Winfield. He likes to walk for exercise. He's been stopped by the police multiple times. Why are you walking? Want some exercise? Enjoy the weather? It's like, you're not supposed to be doing that. It's like, I'm a homeowner here. You know what I mean? Am I breaking the law? It almost seems suspicious sometimes that people walk because we don't have a culture for it, right? Yeah. So did someone else have that? One other thing I want to mention too is mental illness maybe could rob us of freedom. I want to be careful with that, but I think that's how it is. Doesn't mean we're stuck with it forever. I think everybody's got some mental illness basically, so we all lose it. But maybe that's also something we can improve. So maybe we can gain freedom. If vices take away our freedom, but not completely, then it comes in degrees. If we can overcome the vices, we can actually attain freedom. Freedom's something we're not just born with. We can actually grow. We can attain. We never talk about this in philosophy. It drives me freaking crazy. In a Renaissance, they talked about this, and then it kind of stopped. Here's another one. Fear. I think the main reason why you all don't participate more in class. Actually, I got two. No, it's actually kind of one. What do you think? I mean, it could be all kinds of stuff, but you're not in practice. Yeah, sure. Okay, there's a practice thing, but there's something else that goes with that too. Chris, what do you think I think is the main reason why you all don't participate more in class? Those of you who don't, which is mostly, yeah. Because you're afraid. You might want to just think a little bit about what fear takes away from you in your own life. If we had a friend who said, I'd really love to go to Japan. I think it might have a huge impact on me and how I see the world, but I'm too afraid to get on an airplane. Then we definitely could have some real sympathy with that. But we'd probably see this person is losing out on something, and we'd probably want to try to help them to overcome that fear so they can have this experience and have a richer life. How many students don't engage in class or in school because they're just afraid? How much do we rob ourselves of from that? Now, maybe part of the issue here is because of the way we do school system, a lot of you aren't really aware of how much this really could do for you. We're stuck with this transactional picture of education where you just jump through the hoops and you get a goodie at the end. We don't realize that actually we could get so much more out of this. This could be about developing our minds, developing our very selves, not just our characters, but just our own humanity, developing that. We don't see that, so we don't know what we're missing out on. But I think a lot of you probably wouldn't be too hard to convince you that actually that is something that could be there for you. If we're too afraid to do that, I mean, wow, this fear might take away a lot of our freedom. Then again, if you hear that, does that really inspire you? Or do you just feel shame over that or guilt and that just puts you further down? I don't know. I hope it doesn't do that because then I just harmed all of you, right? But it's an interesting thing to think about how much fear takes away. Maybe at some point, excuse my language, you kind of just got to say, fuck it. Like you're kind of too important for them and just let it be. I really think it might help all of you if college professors brought their own college assignments to class and you can see how they're human beings too and see all the stuff they had to learn and go through. Actually, a couple of years ago, I was at my folks' house and for Thanksgiving, I was going through my old bedroom and I found some papers that I wrote when I was a junior and senior in college in my philosophy classes. And I was like, I don't even know what the hell I wrote. I'm like, how the fuck did I get an A on this shit? I don't even know what the hell I wrote down. This is just complete bullshit. And I thought to myself, and it's honestly true, all of my students at COD produced better work in their first freaking class than I was after 3 years of this shit. But, you guys don't see that. So you hold yourself to too high standards and then you lose out on a lot. And that's interesting. I do wonder. John, you're an athlete. How many athletes do you think on the field, on a football field, will refuse to play because they're afraid they'll make a mistake in front of the crowd? Okay, maybe there's some, but if they persisted in it, if they absolutely refuse to play, I mean, eventually the coach is just going to take them out, right? Maybe they're going to play, but they can feel some pressure on them. It's interesting to me, actually, how in sports we're so much better at this than in school. And I think, Cole, you just hit the nail on the head. The problem is maybe the whole way we're doing the K through 12 system actually sets you guys up in a bad, not to succeed. I think you hit it. All right. Let's do an activity. Y'all have that? Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna break you into groups, and then I want you in your groups. Well, first you're gonna do something on your own in your group. So you'll be seated with your group, but you'll do it on your own. I want you to read the first three paragraphs. First three on this page, only the first three. Don't go beyond the first three, okay? By the way, we're not gonna use all this paper today. If you could bring it all to class on Thursday, that would be awesome. Only the first three paragraphs. And what I want you to do is try to figure out what the hell is this dude saying? All right, so he's talking about free will. What is he saying about it? I'll give you a little hint. You will find at least one argument. I want you to see if you can find 2, 3, 4, 5, or only one. There's at least one argument. I'm not going to tell you exactly how many, at least one. I want you to try to figure out how many arguments is he making about free will and what are the conclusions of the arguments. And here I'll even give you a little more help. He's either going to be arguing that we have free will or that we don't. Or at least, if he's not taking an absolute stand on it, he's going to be giving us arguments someone might accept for thinking we have free will or we don't. So how many arguments is he giving us? And are these arguments supporting free will? Or are they maybe attacking free will? And then try to work out what the arguments are. And before we do that, what is an argument? Class, let's remind ourselves, what is an argument? How do we define arguments in this class? What is an argument? Think back to that logic assignment. What's an argument, y'all? Paul? Okay, that's how we're typically using it in everyday life. And in philosophy, we will use it in that way a fair amount. But there was another way we used it. It's not unrelated to that, but there's another way that we used it in the logic side. I know it's been a couple of weeks. I know that it's just not fresh in your memory. Marco, you was in philosophy club last night, and we reviewed this in philosophy club last night. So Marco might be a little fresher for Marco, yeah?
Using premises to prove the conclusion.
Okay. So we got 1, 2, maybe 3. And we got our little line, and we put so. And up top, we got our premises. Now, there could be 1 premise, 2 premise, 3 premise, whatever. It's variable. And actually, technically, you could have an infinite number of conclusions, but typically we just have 1. And so the idea is we're putting some sentences up here, statements up here that are supposed to support the statement down there, right? So the conclusion is going to be something in favor of free will or against free will. How many arguments? And what are the premises? To identify the premises, you can ask yourself this question. If we're going to be arguing for free will, we're going to be saying we have free will because of X. What could the X be? Or we don't have free will because of Y. What could the Y be? Look for the key idea that's going to tie to free will. I'm also going to tell you something. This might be very, very difficult for you. You may really struggle with this. This isn't because you're not smart. This isn't because you're not good students. It actually takes a hell of a long time to learn how to do this well. And if we could redo the whole school system and teach philosophy properly, our first course in philosophy would probably be focused only on doing this. But you know what? We don't do that and we don't have time for it, so we always skip it. I mean, I'm barely doing it. You know what I'm saying? This is more than you often usually get. We actually should probably start doing this stuff in middle school or high school. This probably will be really difficult for you. It's all right. That's why we're here. Okay. So do you all kind of know what you're supposed to do? Only the first three paragraphs. Try to identify how many arguments. Is it for or against free will? And then how is he arguing for or against free will? What's like the key idea? Right? Is he saying like IKEAs exist, SpaghettiOs are a thing, therefore free will? You know, Snorlax is the greatest Pokemon Gen 1, therefore we don't have free will? Like, no, no. So how's the argument supposed to go? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, Christian 4, Kuldeep 5, Manon 1, John 2, Gabriella 3, Matt 4, Nicole 5, Claudia 1, Chris 2, 3, Donovan 4, Carter 5, Bella 1. We'll do ones over here, twos, threes, fours, 5. Actually, no. I don't want Owen to have them over. Owen is 1. Then over here is 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll do it like that. So just move, make your group. Sure. All right. If you don't know the other people, you can introduce yourself and sure you can start this. No, I'm just kidding. Just introduce yourself and then start reading. We all read. Just the first three paragraphs. Don't stray into the fourth paragraph. Okay. Then you go to the library. You might want to circle keywords. If there's anything you don't understand, put a question mark next to it. Then when you're done, you can start talking with your people.
You're moving forward. You're moving forward. What's up? And then where's your finger? Where's your finger? And then that's where you almost like. Going up the finger. Taking this one. I mean, theoretically, you could have. Yeah. No way. No. In the area, you can. You could have steered out the west. All he did was. Well, I think it's a plus. I think the implication here is that he was forced. I think that's what the author is trying to. Killer is standing behind you, holding your hand, and his finger above your finger. Making a spot. I think the idea is that he didn't have control after flying it out. I mean, yeah, he was. I don't know if I wouldn't be thinking about that. I'm thinking about if I'm falling back and I'm making it. Well, yeah, you don't want to kill somebody in the process, but I think the idea. They had a really good record back. They're trying to say that they had no choice. Because I mean, like, maybe the kidnapper was like, all right, you can either be killed, I'll kill you, or you're gonna have to kill 3 people.
All right, fine. Thank you for the update. I appreciate it.
Well, yeah, so. Right. I think what the author's trying to get at, I don't know, I haven't read this, like, you could say that, like, to some degree, your choices are conditions outside forces. Yeah. Yeah. And does that disprove free will and not itself? You said, why make plans if you're not free to do it? Well, like, not every. This is like,
Makes a good point.
is he saying no? Well, I think he's moving toward, I don't know. He's rested, but I don't know if he's.
Okay, so why does he want free will? I don't even know. I think in the end, we don't have control. Well, why would he think that we ever have it? What are the ones that he goes to these? A lot of
So like, think of it like this. First case. Right? What if you were like, what if someone killed your child? Killed your child. You would go into them. Kill them. You could say that the act of killing the murder is determined by the fact that you have rage for the murder of your child. You could, but if you plan it, but even then, you would have never planned it if your child was never killed. So did your child getting killed determine that you killed the murder? And not only that, like maybe you could say, like, what if you were more docile? If you were docile. But even then, could you say there are conditions in your life that made you docile? But then that would also make you vengeful. So like, there's like a web of conditions that kind of affect your choices, right? Right, but does that determine, does that say that your actions are free? By even your opinions, right? You know, to some extent, unless they really like. Do you see what I'm saying? Right. There is like a determinant.
Yeah,
Like you're saying. Yeah. You murdering.
yeah. So yeah, your choices really can be determined. So even but even then, like if you choose to be docile, you choose to be vengeful.
You chose them.
No, but like which choice you chose could have been conditioned by like experiences in your life previously. Like if you were raised in a very docile family, maybe you wouldn't hunt the murder. But if you were raised in a very militant family, you would.
But even if you were, like, let's say you were raised with alcohol.
True, but then there could be other conditions that we're not aware of. Right? How do you know your choices are fully conditioned and you really have no control? Because even you can say your consciousness as a whole, like the environment that you reflects your position. So there could be like almost no
Key terms.
because there's so much conditions that can affect how you perceive things, how you make choices. It can shape us. But can we break
You know, I feel like in the end, everyone has their own. Deep down, you know that's wrong.
I think that it's actually, I think it's awareness. Be aware of like the outcomes and their inclinations towards choosing certain things. Then you can act. Disconnected. Yeah, what if I?
Kind of like breaking a phrase like words.
Yeah, I think you can break free from like your conditioning if you're aware of the condition.
Like it can't be.
Or how it's affected you.
He doesn't maybe talk about the kidney, but it might be helpful to make a little.
Because if you went with your gut,
Or what do you think this author might say about the kidney?
you'd say that your choice is over. If you only go with the immediate reaction, that's something. Then you're making choices. You're just reacting.
So why do you do it?
I think people would definitely have. I don't know if it's. I don't think people have 100%.
If we go up to that, and they.
You know, the last they're waiting. Some people, right, when they hear something or they see something, they're so conditioned to react. Right, so they have little. I immediately control my reaction, yeah. But like, someone might, you know, be just like you are, so they just throw more free will. What gets freaky here though is I like when it comes to morality. You can really argue hard that people who do bad things are very helpful. And they operate purely. You can argue that their moral actions are there. So, on the fact that they, but I mean, you can blame them for not having awareness. But even then, it's just self-conditioned, basically. Like, to be able to have awareness is conditioned by
Like it's clearly he wants to.
I mean, yeah, I mean, because certainly that.
You know, you got something.
Yeah. It is a, you have like this, there's sort of a yin and yang. Like British English. It could be.
Maybe it's, maybe
Maybe we see the like a lower.
Well, do you have a minute after class? All right, another minute.
Well, I think this guy's. I mean, like, maybe there's extra information you could say, he allowed himself to be captured, or maybe he had the choice of like getting killed or doing these actions, and he chose to be forced to do these actions than to allow himself to be killed. Right? In which case, he could be someone more than blameworthy. You could just be more.
you survive, now you're much.
But if he's like, what if, okay, either I kill you and kill these three people, or I kill these three people using you. So either way, the three people die. So like, you can say you can get on your phone. Well, they were gonna die anyway. Well, the idea was that, well, I guess maybe, maybe we could say, I would hold you so you couldn't prevent me or give them at all. Like either way, he's not like it's either way they die. And then at least you survive. Well, I mean, at least you don't go to jail.
All right, y'all. Let's try to. So, don't worry if this was tough. Again, I mean, it is. The only way anybody gets good at this is lots and lots and lots and lots of practice. Really, we need to restructure the whole school system to make that happen, but we're not. So, here goes. Or you tell me, is he arguing for free will or against school system? He's saying we're not always free. But does he think nobody's ever free? I think he's arguing for free will. I think he's arguing for free will. Now again, I was talking about this with the other group. This might sound like a strange example, but okay, it is kind of strange, but I actually heard a biology professor talking about cavefish the other day, so here it goes. We might say some species are not sighted. We're saying that the organisms in that species don't see. Like cavefish, maybe they're blind. At least some of them are blind. They don't see it. Like none of them see. And then okay, well, what about human beings? Well, they see. So no human is blind? Well, no. Some human beings are blind. Some could be blind from birth. Some could lose their sight permanently at a certain point. It might just be you walk outside and it's really bright and you don't have your sunglasses, so you're temporarily blinded. And sometimes your vision is not great, but you still have some sight. We could still just speak of human beings as being a sighted species. Do you know what I mean? I think he wants to say human beings do have free will. And a little spoiler alert, this guy does believe in free will. As we read on in the article, he's going to argue that you should believe in free will. This is the book. And by the way, this is another professor. He's actually, there's two authors of this book, Earl Cuny and Ted Sider. You're reading an article by Ted Sider. He's actually one of the most famous philosophy professors in the world. He is a hardcore atheist. He is a hardcore materialist. He believes in free will, and I think you should too. He's going to kind of put you to the ringer on it. He's going to make you think he doesn't believe in free will for a hot second, and then he's going to be like, nah, just kidding. I totally believe in it. You should too, and here's why. But he is recognizing we're not always free. Now, why would he do that? Because again, one way to figure out what something is to see what it isn't. And if we want to ask, what if we do think we're free? Why do we think we're free? We'll ask, why do you think the things that aren't free? Or we could do that for ourselves. Do we think we're always free? No. then when we're free, why are we free? And when we're not, why are we not? Look for the contrast. That's how you can explain a lot of stuff. Does that kind of make sense? It's a great way to understand something. You know, somebody asks you, can you define like, I don't know, sorry for the sports reference, you know, soccer. You could just start thinking about soccer, but maybe comparing it to football or something else might help you. He said, example, but you know, right? He doesn't think everybody's always free. Does he think the person in the first paragraph is free? That person's not free. Why?
He was forced.
He's forced. Forced. When we hear forced and free, do those sound like they go together or not? They sound like they don't. Now, again, we might want to investigate that, and maybe we'll say actually they can go together. And again, we're going to have some Christians and Muslims tell us that God forces us, but we're also free. And some of us will say, well, that's crazy. They're opposites. It's just in the words. And they'll say, well, hear me out. So we'll have to judge it when we come to it. But at least right now, forced and free don't look like they go together. I think Sider's going to say this kind of force is not compatible with freedom. Why? Why aren't they? Why isn't this person free? Because they're forced, but how are they forced? Hypnotism. And by the way, hypnotism, I'm kind of surprised to use this example. A lot of philosophers, we probably don't believe in hypnotism. Maybe we should, but honestly, I'm kind of a skeptical person, even though I'm also religious. I'm weird. We're all weird. I'm the kind of person that when you start talking about hypnotism, I'm like, yeah, that kind of sounds like bullshit to me. Sorry, I don't mean to be aggressive or whatever, but maybe I should follow my own advice and say, how can I say that if I haven't asked experts on it? I wouldn't be surprised if Sider said he actually doesn't believe in hypnotism. I'm kind of surprised to use it as an example. But the other examples might be clearer. So I have a case of hypnosis or alleged hypnosis, and what are the other examples? Well, I don't think we should really just listen to people and just say things like, oh, I think that's bullshit. I'm just trying to like have a little humor to lighten things. We should not be aggressive about this, right? This should be collaborative and fun. The aggression doesn't help any of us, right? So that's not like seriousness and aggression, not the same thing. Sorry, that's my little soapbox. What are the other ways in which this individual is forced? Okay, just like pushed, right? Yeah. Next things will talk about. Okay, focus wolf. Also, all right. So one person just pushed. What's the other one? Yeah. So one person just pushed.
Yeah.
So what's the other one?
There's, you got push, you got fire,
Yeah.
the law, you got,
Okay, before that, the first one.
kidnap.
Yeah, so we have four. He just uses the verb force right there. Forced to squeeze the trigger. So you can imagine this. You kind of get overpowered by this person, and they put their hand over your hand, and you can imagine this person's trying to resist. They're trying to resist. They're trying to resist. They're like saying to themselves, "No, I don't want to do it. Don't make me do it." But they're overpowered. They can't do anything else, right? I mean, we do this with our cats and our dogs and stuff like this, right? You're walking your dog sees another dog. If you got a reactive dog, it might like kind of lunge after the other dog and you hold the leash tight. The dog wants to run after the other dog, but you don't let it. Is the dog free in that moment? Well, it's free to try to lunge after the other dog, but is it free to lunge after the other? It's free to want it, but it's not free to do it, right? It's free to try, but not to succeed. If you completely like you get with a dog, a cat, you don't want your cat to be on the sofa, so you move it off the ground. The cat might try to resist, but you just move it. You just with the baby, you pick up a baby, you put a baby down. The baby can't control that. You could say the baby doesn't make a choice. Well, actually, the baby maybe can make a kind of a choice. They might have an impulse at least. Maybe that's not totally freedom, but let's not worry about that right now. You guys get the point. Here's an example I used to use. Imagine I'm in line, at the DMV with a cup of coffee, and somebody behind me just pushes my elbow, and my coffee flies into the person in front of me. I didn't know they were going to push me. I had no reason to suspect I was going to be pushed. I wouldn't want to be pushed. They just did it randomly, and it just happened so suddenly I couldn't stop myself. I would have if I could have, but I couldn't even do it. Would you say I have free will in that case?
No. Why? Because I'm forced. Does this kind of make sense? The squeezing is that, the pushing is that. Can anybody see why he would have used the hypnosis example? I think there is a reason why he used it, but also it is kind of weird. I think maybe he could have come up with a better example, but it might have been too elaborate in this scenario. So I can't actually, at the end of the day, I kind of get why he did go with hypnosis. Yeah, Chris? Yeah, he could have just used an example of like a mad scientist putting an electrode or something in your brain. That would have been kind of too elaborate for the first paragraph. In the case of hypnosis, what's different about the case of hypnosis in the case of like being pushed? Okay, good. Yeah. So in the case of hypnosis, you're a Christian? This is what's interesting about this, right? When the person pushes my arm, I don't choose to throw my coffee. There's no choice. With hypnosis, you're choosing to do it. But we might say if we believe in hypnosis, you're still not responsible because you chose the hypnosis, because your choice was completely controlled, completely manipulated. We need your choice not to be completely controlled or manipulated. Do you see what I mean? Like if it really were possible, like I don't know, if Elon Musk right now really does have this little device, and God damn it, if we do this to ourselves as human beings, where we put these like Zuckerberg has this little like things to put in our brains. We're like, yeah, please give them to me. I totally trust you. This can't go wrong. So we put this little thing in our brain thinking it's going to make us fluent in, I don't know, Mongolian, for our upcoming, vacation to Mongolia. And then it turns out, ha ha ha, it's really a mind control device. And Zuckerberg just pushes a button that makes you go to Chipotle for lunch every day because it turns out he's got a steak in Chipotle. If the way the science really worked, the scientists like, no, this is legit. When Zuckerberg pushes the button, you want to go to Chipotle, and it's irresistible. And it just makes you. We would probably say it's not really your choice. You're not free. Well, you're choosing, but you're not really choosing because it's completely manipulated from the outside. Do you see what I mean? That's actually important for us. It's not just making a choice. The choice has to be free from certain kinds of external manipulation. Do you know what I mean? By the way, does that make sense, y'all? Are we good? Does this make sense? By the way, do you think we should say you're free only if you're completely immune to any sort of external influences? Not if you want to believe in free will, you shouldn't. Why? What if I said I believe in free will? And I think we're free a lot of the time. But I also think you're only free when you're completely immune to external influences. Does that make sense to you all? Eric, why? I think it may be impossible. Again, think about how you learn how to talk. Your parents like spoke a lot of stuff in your face. Or they just put, I don't know, Bluey on the screen and handed it to you, whatever your folks did. You know what I mean? Probably a mix of both for a lot of us, right? If you weren't subject to external influences at all, you never learn how to talk. You never learn how to talk. We actually need, this is kind of the funny thing, like we need actually some outside stuff to just make our brain do some stuff, or we can't have meaningful freedom at all. So then the kind of question is, where do we draw the line? Zuckerberg's mind control device? But we're not gods. We're not like completely free of external influence. Actually, talk to a lot of Hindus and Christians and others, they'll say God doesn't even have that kind of freedom. Right? Essentially a question, does God allow, just sort of freely decide to be subject to certain influence? Okay, let's not worry about that. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Paragraph 2. By the way, why do you think he uses these kinds of examples in the first place? Sander, I think he's kind of a fun person. He uses Ozzy Osbourne and all this type of stuff. Why do you think he used it? I had a student a couple semesters ago actually got really bothered by this. Why would he start in his paper talking about killing people? Why do you think he's using these kinds of examples? They're extreme. They're extreme. And again, sometimes it just helps clarify stuff. And also, if we're connecting, oh, I almost gave something away. Yeah, we'll come back to that in a second. Also, I think he just wants to be a little bit funny. Here's one that puts you at ease. Philosophy is kind of a heavy subject. This is the book. By the way, does this look like a really, is this book thick or thin? It's thin. Does this book look like a really hard, difficult, brain-breaking philosophy book, or does it look like it's fun? Yeah, I mean, Cider's kid painted the picture that's on the front. They tried to write this book to be totally accessible to people with no background in philosophy. I do not think they totally succeeded. I think this chapter on free will is actually hella complicated in ways it didn't have to be, because it's really hard to do this one. So I think that's why he's doing it. So let's go on second paragraph. What did we get out of the second paragraph? Blame. Are the police and parents fair to blame you for the killings? Obviously not. That sounds like what he's saying. Obviously not. It sounds like he's saying an appropriate persona. Like I, Ted Cider, agree. Obviously not. They shouldn't blame you, for you have an unassailable excuse. What does unassailable mean? You can't attack it. To assail something is to attack it. Unassailable, unattackable. It's an unattackable defense. In other words, it's an airtight defense. You have an airtight defense. You did not act of your own free will. He's saying right there, you weren't free, therefore they can't blame you. You couldn't help what you did. You cannot have done otherwise, and only those who actually are more responsible. We now have at least one argument for free will. What is it? So we don't always have freedom, but we do sometimes, because why? Let's answer question number one, at least half of it before we go. We'll pick this up on Thursday, but here it goes. Here's the first argument. We have moral responsibility. If we have moral responsibility, then we have free will. What can we get out of this? What's our conclusion? Yeah. So we have free will. Except we need to actually complicate this a little bit. We have moral responsibility. What we'd really need is at least sometimes, or at least for some of our actions. Not always. If we have moral responsibility, we could say for a certain action. Then we have free will insofar as that action is concerned. We have free will, at least you get it, insofar as that action is concerned. Insofar as those actions are concerned. We have it at least some at a time. When we're not being forced like this. By the way, how often does somebody how often have you been hypnotized? 0. How many times did someone, like grab your hand and make you do something? Well, I don't know, maybe your teacher did to help you with your handwriting, or your tennis coach to help you with your swing. That's probably even different. That's not even fully forced, actually, because you're kind of letting them do it. Probably your teacher shouldn't do that to you. But you know what I mean? Your parents might have did that too when you're real little. You're like about to walk into traffic, they kind of grab you. You might say if you're wrestling or something like that, you got thrown around on the mat. If you do jiu-jitsu, what is that? You like allowed that. You could, so maybe we even say there, you allowed it, right? I think in general, we could ask what are the range of cases where we're truly forced in a freedom-defeating way. They don't happen that often. We have free will a lot of the time. Clear about how he had written this? Yes. By the way, that's one reason why I actually like using these pieces, because people don't always write crisply and cleanly, even when they're professional philosophers. Because now what we always tell people to do in the field is this. If you're going to write an article, you have to do it like this. You have to say, in this article, I will defend the claim that we have free will. I will give 4 arguments for free will. Argument number 1, here it is. We do that. He's not doing that because he doesn't want this to sound too stiff. But actually, his writing is a bit unclear. It really is. It is kind of confusing. We're going to see, we'll pick this up on Thursday. We're going to see he jumps around quite a bit. We'll continue on Thursday. I will send you an email in a little bit for something to do for Thursday. Peace.